Hi, everybody. My name is Trevor Swanton, and today I'll be covering my week of research for Replate. So, what is Replate? Well, it's an app that allows restaurants to post pickup requests for leftover food. It also allows individuals to pick up that food and deliver it to an organization that can put it to good use. The app seems to be targeted at younger people, about 18 to 30, as it requires some more free time and has a focus on driving around, which is something that many people over the age of 30 are starting to get tired of. So, why is this important? It's important because the volunteer community is not as large as some people think it is. Replay allows for not only regular volunteers to find work, but for new volunteers to find work that is more flexible and convenient than the Saturday morning food bank job. So, how did I do this? I started by looking at everything and breaking it into a three-part process: organization, collection, and analyzation. So, first with organization, there were three things that I needed to accomplish: priorities, planning, and prep. First were priorities. I looked at the information in the project brief and I tried to brainstorm of ways to accomplish what was asked. Some ideas were specifically stated in the brief, making them more known and less resource intensive, and those ideas were left in the lower left of the image. Other ideas became more like stepping stones to solutions. These were more explicit, or these were less explicit in the brief, and therefore may be more resource intensive to create. These ideas are also something that we need to research more and are left in the top right corner of the image. And with that, I move on to planning. In the planning stage, I took my risky assumptions and started to think about how the user would react to them. Hypotheses 1 through 3 and hypothesis 5 are all about the volunteer aspect of the app, while hypothesis 4 is more focused on what the business's abilities within the app are. With that, I go to prep, and I started to form questions from the planning stage. Using those hypotheses, I started to create these questions, and I put these questions into different research methods and use the ones under user interview and survey to then start the next part of my process, collection. So in part 2, there are 4 stages that need to be completed: recruitment, survey, interview, and the report. Starting with recruitment, I created social media posts to target Replate's demographic of 18 to 30-year-olds. And overall, I got a couple of people to do interviews and even more people willing to take the survey. So, with the survey, the goal of it was to understand why people did or did not volunteer. Questions range from what reasons for volunteering below apply to you, to do you like to drive? As a result of these questions, I got a lot of really good information showing that some people just don't have the time to volunteer, but that wasn't the only reason. It was a mix of time, convenience, and just not knowing where to go. Next were the interviews, and I got a lot of really good information from them as well. The goal was to understand why volunteers keep volunteering and see what they have to say about those that don't volunteer. I interviewed 2 males and 1 female with the 18 or within the 18 to 30 age range, and the results were great. All of them had perspectives on uh, why they volunteered, and they were all very similar, but they all had different views on why people didn't volunteer, which was even more interesting. With that, my second interviewee gave the most information that I think I will ever get from this research, and that is people don't care about the organization. They care about how their work is impacting people, what the emotional story is behind why the organization does what it does. And I think that's really interesting because it kind of goes along with how the survey answers lined up. My interviewee said how people that don't hear an emotional story have no idea that people need help. And with that, with the survey answers, it kind of fits. People just don't know where to go. They don't have those emotional stories to tell them, hey, these people need help. So I thought that was really interesting. I thought it was important. So from the research, I found that everyone's busy. I mean, who isn't? But we now have the opportunity to create something that doesn't take up a lot of time. I also found that from the one interview that I was just talking about, people connect most with an emotional story. They will more likely be wanting to help if they know who they're helping and how they're impacting them. It doesn't really matter about the organization all that much. And lastly, the volunteers that regularly volunteer, they care about helping people. They'll focus on that no matter what. That's what they're happy doing. So we don't really need to entice them too much to keep volunteering and keep accepting requests and stuff like that. So going forward into part 3, I suggest that we work towards the original goal of making volunteer work more convenient. But in addition, we should make it more engaging for the new and infrequent volunteers. So in the final part of the process, I analyzed the data and created 3 resources: personas, journey maps, and user flows. With personas, I'd like you to meet Jared and Megan and figure out their purpose. So here is Jared and Megan. Jared and Megan both fit the age range that I was talking about previously. And these are the Replate personas. They represent our average user base, and Jared represents the new and infrequent volunteer, while Megan represents the veteran. So why did I build these? I built them because they help designers understand the users and keep them in mind. They're built off the data gained from our research, so they include real personalities and interests that help sell their accuracy. By keeping accurate representations of our users close by, we have someone to design for. We aren't guessing about any of our design choices. We know exactly what these users will like. Next, I made journey maps using the data from the personas. Here again are Jared and Megan with 2 very distinct journey maps. This is because they're 2 very different people. A journey map shows the broad path that a user may take to use a product. So in this case, Jared and Megan, both young, they're going to be using social media more. They might find Replate on social media just while browsing. But as we get further down into the map, we see how different they become. Jared will get easily bored if he doesn't feel like his work is being rewarding enough, while Megan is loving just doing any work that she can to help people. So 2 different people, 2 different journey maps. So how are they made? A journey map is made by taking the persona and translating that into assumptions. It was up to me to create an accurate representation of how the persona and my journey maps kind of came together. The journey map was all assumptive. I had to think about what this user might do. So the journey map is important because it shows where some problems may arise for users. For example, I circled the problems that Jared and users like him may face. The first circle shows that Jared may have a hard time finding Replate if it isn't shown to him directly. The second shows that Jared may be confused about how the process of accepting pickups and delivering them works. The journey map helps designers visualize problems and predict solutions to lower the chance of a user jumping ship. Lastly, there's user flows. The user flows show how a user may navigate a product. Every specific set of actions in an app can be shown in a user flow. The one on screen is of the sign up and login process. You can see how there are many different actions and pages that the user can interact with and look at. Each box is a different action and page, and this helps translate ideas between a designer and a developer. User flows show specific sets of actions, as I said before, but they show them in a step-by-step process. There's a high amount of detail in how each user flow is built. This flow is an enlarged version of the sign-up flow, and in the green boxes, you have the user starting points. In the blue, purple, and pink boxes, you have the actions, choices, and pages. And in the red, you have the user's ending points. As you can see on the right, I have 3 ending points, and 2 of them are the same. The left one is from the login part of the flow, and the right is the intended sign-up ending. The middle point is a potential drop-off point for the user. This is a point where their pace of making it through the sign-up flow is dependent on how fast they get their verification code. These types of issues are important to be aware of as we get further into development. We may want to change the flow in order to remove that drop-off point, or maybe even just forget it entirely and see if it's even something that we had to worry about. Lastly, there are journey maps, and user flows are completely different. Lastly, journey maps and user flows are completely different. Journey maps show a broad journey of how a user will use a product, while a user flow is more specific with the exact actions being listed. Journey maps are also very assumptive. They are based on real data, but you don't really know with 100% accuracy that every user will feel the same about something. For all we know, a user exactly like Megan, for example, may just find the work boring, and no amount of convincing would bring her back. People are different. With user flows, they aren't built with a specific person in mind. They are structured the way the designer wants, allowing the user to navigate effortlessly through the app. So in summary, my 3-step process of organization, collection, and analyzation worked really well, and I think I gained a lot of important data. Moving forward, I think we are ready to start fixing the problems that we have according to the journey maps. Thank you. Are there any questions?